When was the last time you made a decision? You've probably made several decisions already today, right? What am I going to wear? What am I going to eat? That's just part of our day. We have those decisions. Why is it that there are certain decisions we make that we don't even think about? Is it because they're routine, second nature? And then why is it that we overly analyze other decisions, and then sometimes we have a very difficult time making them? When you think about the process of decision making or the art of decision making, it's a really intriguing thing. But I think one of the things that we sometimes get bogged down with is the decision itself. And for instance, if you're thinking about buying a car, do you buy a white car, a red car, a blue car, a black car? That's a pretty big decision. Now, how the car drives and probably how it operates isn't really impacted by the color. How you feel about that car would be. And chances are, if you keep your cars for the average length of time that most Americans keep cars, you're stuck with that decision for quite some time. So it's probably very important to make a decision that you can support and feel good about long term. But again, in most cases, when you're making a decision, what causes us pause is the options. Because when you're making a decision, you're either deciding to do something or not do something, or you're deciding between a plethora of options. So you always should look at it from a standpoint. So one of the steps I use is taking a step back and looking at it and saying, A, what are the consequences of a bad decision? And what are the outcomes of a good decision? And in some cases, you realize that the difference between a good decision and a bad decision really doesn't matter. So those are sometimes decisions you struggle with the most, is because it really doesn't have a good outcome. If you knew that it was a matter of life or death, it's pretty easy to make that decision. You choose whatever probably will make you live. But it's the more mundane decisions that we get hung up on, and a lot of times they don't mean as much. Now, I'm not saying that's always the case, but that's a lot of the case, because the easy decisions present themselves. I think it's important to remember that indecision is also a decision, because what will happen with indecision is whatever it is you're trying to decide on, a lot of times will decide for itself, and it may not always be in your favor. One of the early lessons I learned in decision making was I was a young manager at Louisiana Nursery, and we were building a new location in Baton Rouge on Coursey Boulevard. If you've been there, you should check it out. It's still there. And we were laying the nursery out, and that was my job, was to kind of lay the nursery out and get it ready to bring the inventory in. I had spent, a few weeks out there, and we were getting everything prepared, and I had a diagram and a map and a layout of the location, and I got to the point where I needed to build the aisles. Well, I had about a 2-day standstill, because on that diagram, it didn't say how wide to make those aisles. So I waited, and at some point, my mentor, and at that time my boss, Roger Mays, showed up, and I told him, I said, Roger, the last decision we have left to make is how wide are these aisles going to be? And we were standing underneath an oak tree, and he just kind of smiled, and he looked down, and he picked up a stick, and he gives me the stick, and he says, make them this wide. And I kind of chuckled and looked at the stick, and then I realized he was serious. So the aisles are 6 feet 8 inches wide, because that's how big the stick was, and they're still that same size. And, I worked there for a number of years after that, and don't ever remember anyone complaining. But what drove me to really pause on that decision was I thought surely there had to be some algorithm or something that took in traffic count and square footage of merchandise and retail. And there probably is something to that science. But Roger was drawing from wisdom in the years that he had been in business, and he made that decision. Now, I was paralyzed. No, that's a decision that I didn't have the wisdom to make, and I didn't know what protocol to follow to come up to that decision. So a lot of times when you find yourself, whether it's in a personal decision or a business decision, and you're trying to figure out what option or should you not do something, you may want to consult the wise person. And what is wisdom? I always say wisdom is knowledge that's been beat up. So knowledge is what you learn, and wisdom is what you learn when you execute on your knowledge. So find people who've made mistakes, who've been there, who have gained wisdom, and lean on them. But again, let's go back to what I said in the beginning. In your life for decision making, whether it's at home, whether you're making job decisions, whether you're deciding what to do with your business or your own personal career, outline what the consequences are for good decision and bad decision, and see if it's really something that you should be spending a lot of time on or worry on. And if it is, then maybe you seek that wisdom if you don't have the knowledge to make that decision. But again, decisions have to be made, so make your decisions. If you generally have a first instinct, go with it. If you feel like you want to buy a white car, chances are if you buy the white car, you'll be happy with the white car. But again, make your decisions, seek counsel on those decisions that you feel like you need counsel on, but seek it early and make the decision. So I'm going to decide right now that I've talked enough. So y'all have a good day. Bye.